Welcome to Double Fries No Slaw pop-up episode, midweek episode. I'm joined by Ingram Smith of the Nolecast. Ingram, how's it going today?
It's good, man. I'm just reacting to this here in real time with the ACC announcing the 335 model. I'll be honest with you. I literally was just driving this, looking at this while I was driving in my car, and I was going to ask you what your rule on, using explicit language is, but I've got a little bit better feel for this looking over it. I think it's, I realize you're not going to geopack Clemson, Georgia Tech, Florida State, and Miami all into the same four team. I do think Florida State and Georgia Tech not being in the same pod is very stupid and is a move that the ACC has failed to put its two biggest brands in Clemson and Florida State in Atlanta, which is its biggest media market by far.
Yeah.
But the ACC stays doing dumb stuff, and I think it'll be a large part of the reason why the ACC is probably not going to see this contract all the way through. But who knows? That's for speculation for another time. But there was word that Alfred wanted a Boston College or potentially a Syracuse involved in Florida State's grouping, and we talked a little bit about that on the Nolecast a couple weeks ago. I personally would disagree with him. I think that's a little bit of a dated mentality to think that gives you some significant exposure into, the New York media market or any of the other reasons why people talk about Boston College or Syracuse. But that's what it is, and we can all wrap our head around the idea that you'll be playing Clemson and Miami every year, and I don't, immediately see another quote unquote ACC football power with such a pairing when you look at what the model is that we have to work off of.
Yeah, we talked about this just before. Let me get it where we can still see, what's kind of going on here. But yeah, it certainly have the toughest two opponents, right? In Clemson and Miami every year. Nobody else has Florida State and Miami. No one else has Florida State and Clemson. And we're the only team with, like we just mentioned, Clemson and Miami. But obviously you wouldn't give up either one of those games. For us kind of, talking about the ACC giving us maybe the toughest two opponents, you're not going to want to lose either one of those from a recruiting, from a primetime kind of aspect, are you, right? Like which one, if you had to give one up, I mean, which one are you going with?
I mean, I think Florida State would be fine not playing Clemson every year. I really do. I think in theory you'd see them in a decent amount enough times in a conference game, and we've obviously all learned the lessons of trying to project what ACC championship conference games will look like, and that those don't necessarily come to fruition when it comes to making long-term scheduling decisions. But I don't know that you need Clemson every year, to be perfectly honest with you. It's just a strange, wonderful grouping. I mean, I do love that UNC gets Duke, Virginia, and NC State every year. That's lovely. It's good to see the ACC folks continuing to take care of number one. But it's I don't know, man. Just I try not to crap all over a conference at times, and then there seems to be times where the conference is more or less out to do that. But if this really is Florida State's want, and they're bending to the request of Alfred and the athletic administration, then maybe I shouldn't crap all over the conference and rather acknowledge that they're doing what it sounds like Florida State or those at Florida State wanted to be considered. So
certainly get a little bit of a break playing Syracuse, you would think, right? So as much as we don't maybe like the geographical side of things. There were some rumors you said, I don't know if I can share this or not, but some rumors off there that maybe a team from Raleigh would have been the common opponent in there, and certainly prefer Syracuse over that, right?
Yeah, there was rumors of that, and that made no sense to me. Other than that, then you were letting ABC/Disney put your scheduling together, and you thought,
Sure.
well, if we weren't going to get the Atlanta market, we will at least get the rapidly growing and rapidly growing in significance television market of Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. But I'm glad to see that not come to fruition. That would have been surprising to me, but I had heard a little bit of background chatter about that, and that would have been, moronically stupid in my opinion. So glad that didn't come, in that that isn't the scheduling model of which we were reviewing on the screen right now.
Yeah, how much of, and somebody's commenting on it, just, we mentioned Georgia Tech at the start. I tweeted this, I talked to you about this. How much of it do you think had to do with them not wanting to stick Georgia Tech with the toughest two opponents in the conference in Florida State and Clemson?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's part of it, but I would say that's tough, guys. You know, we'll let you play your way out of that hole in time, hopefully, if you're Georgia Tech, but you're Atlanta, and the Georgia Tech Stadium isn't like raucously intimidating or anything like that, but it is cool as hell. It's one of the more unique atmospheres in college football, and putting a Clemson or a Florida State in downtown Atlanta at 8 o'clock on Saturday night is a pretty great way to put your brand on blast, so to say. And the ACC decides to play in a building that's named after an air conditioning company that I still don't think has air conditioning. So that's great. We get to play in the Big Pillow in New York and not Atlanta, Georgia, which obviously I'm biased being from Atlanta, and I love being able to take Marta and go watch Florida State play football. But so such is life.
Anything else really big stick out to you? And I'll go to this as I ask you that, so you can kind of think about it. But check out Miami's opponents: Boston College and Louisville. Like, you knew Miami would keep Florida State, right? But Miami didn't even keep somebody in the Coastal, right? Like, they got two, BC, right? Like, who cares at all? And then Louisville, right? And you'd think they would have kept like Pitt or something, because that's been a really fun rivalry over the last couple of years. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Pitt and Miami play each other the last game of the year this year in what could be the decider for that division. But Miami's just really weird to me. And obviously they're a newer ACC team. They don't have those long-standing rivalries like Florida State may. But yeah, Miami with Boston College and Louisville as their other two is weird, and pretty easy for them as well.
Yeah, I think Boston College is probably not all that different than a conversation that we just had about Syracuse. It puts them in one of the ACC's biggest markets. In theory, again, that's theory that hasn't played itself out or proven itself to be correct over the last 10 or 15 years. But you get a rather easily, beatable opponent, at least history would say. You get the Florida State game that we certainly were pretty confident wasn't going away. And then Louisville, Louisville could be a program that wins 3 games a year in 5 years from now. Louisville could be the class of the conference, in my opinion, 5 years from now. Louisville's got the biggest floor to ceiling of anybody in the conference. It's really hard to predict what they will be, other than the fact that there seems to be, prolonged investment in athletics there at a level that is, not affected if Papa John's goes on a, bender and ruins himself financially. So they seem to have some, secure funding that continues to, push themselves in the direction of trying to be an elite athletic school. And that'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Certainly doing real well on the recruiting trail as of such, which is a pretty poor metric as to what you'll look like for the next 5 to 8 years. But that is a school that could honestly be just about anything.
The other big takeaway here to me is NC State's schedule. Not too dissimilar from ours. Obviously, I think Miami's a better year in and year out opponent than UNC if they can get their act together. But they also have Clemson, just like us, and they have a Duke team that, again, kind of going to be about like that Syracuse team a lot of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that NC State didn't just get away with not having Clemson or, NC State ended up with Virginia there instead of Clemson, and they're going to the ACC championship at, just about every year.
Yeah. Or they certainly get the, the benefit of the primary schedule, if that were to be the case. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, they put them with Clemson. That's turned into a good game, good little recruiting rivalry potential, although obviously, we know what the more powerful brand and program is there. But NC State is doing their thing and showing a pretty significant commitment to Florida, to football, at least for an ACC program. And that's an interesting schedule from the standpoint that, like, Duke is not a mandatory pairing there. I don't know that that's necessarily like the, them looking to keep some kind of significant geographic rivalry. They do get, 2 schools that are within 35 minutes of their campus, which is nice. And, brings me back to my complaints about Georgia Tech not being on Florida State's schedule, but so be it.
When you look at this, is there, I mean, other than Clemson just being kind of the class of the conference right now, I think that it's set up for pretty good parity, but at the end of the day, think it's going to come down to the games between Florida State. It's going to come down to Florida State, Clemson, NC State, and Miami most years, right? Like how those teams fare against each other. Obviously, the other 5 games in conference are going to matter, but do you see anything else that's like, oh man, this team has a really nice path to maybe get there more often than not? I've got one in mind, but I'll let you answer first.
Yeah, mine would be if Virginia Tech gets its house in order. They've got a pretty favorable grouping here of Wake, Virginia, and Pitt. I mean, they're none of the traditional powers by any means, and if Virginia Tech can ever, get their feet under them and play like the team that 10 years ago most people would have expected to win the Coastal, 4 or 5 times out of a decade, then I think they've got a very nice grouping here to help them get back to that.
Yeah, mine. I like Virginia Tech a lot. Mine's one of Virginia Tech's opponents. It's Pitt, having Boston College and Syracuse there. That they have two opponents that I think they should take care of a lot of years.
No, they're back in the Big East. For all intents and purposes. They kept
Virginia
the old
Tech
Big East together there.
If VT doesn't get it together, then I think Pitt could have three pretty favorable opponents, every year. And if their rotating year one year happens to be something like, UNC and Q's, they're gonna wreak havoc and go 5-0 in those games and have a great shot to get there. So, all right, I want to look really quickly at Florida State's. I don't want to go through every single year because that just seems unnecessary. And somebody made a comment on here of probably won't even be in the conference that long anyway. But I did want to look at the 2023 schedule, which I think is pretty interesting. And for all that we kind of know about how tough Florida State's out of conference stuff gets here in the next couple of years, I don't think this 2023 schedule sets up too poorly for Florida State from a conference perspective. I think you get the Duke, Virginia Tech, Syracuse at home, Miami at home. I mean, that's got to be 3-1 worst case, if not 4-0, right? And I think that sets up pretty well. I mean, you can't lose to Duke and Syracuse in Doak Campbell. At worst, you split with Miami and Virginia Tech, but get a couple things in order, and you really should go kind of 4-0 there. Away, Boston College, Clemson's the tough one. Pitt, always a very physical game, in Wake Forest. I don't think that sets up terribly, right? No Raleigh trip in there, no trip to Blacksburg. Going on the road to Clemson is tough. Playing Clemson at home is tough. So I don't know that really matters too much. You get your biggest rival at home. You don't have to go to BC or something crazy like that. So thoughts quickly on Florida State's 2023 kind of grouping?
Yeah, historically, I would say, I'd like to avoid a mid November game with BC, but that wasn't really a problem last year for Florida State. It was one of the better performances that I've seen from them in quite a while. I would, same for Pitt. I'd like to not play them in November up there, if at all possible. But no, I completely agree with you that sets up to be a pretty favorable in-conference schedule. And you're right to point out that, Florida State needs all the favorable in-conference scheduling that it can get based off what it's done to itself in the out-of-conference scheduling and what a athletic program has needed to do to secure a couple extra financial commitments as far as how they've handled scheduling over the last 5 years or so.
The reminder that Florida State's out-of-conference schedule next year is probably one of the easier ones that they'll have, considering who's coming up in 2024, 25, 26. That 26 schedule is murder's row, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. LSU in Orlando, Southern Miss, North Alabama, and Florida on the road. But you've got a coin flip rivalry game at the end, home-ish game against LSU next year, and then a couple that you certainly don't expect a loss against Southern Miss or North Alabama. I guess nothing's certain after last year, but
yes.
I think the schedule sets up pretty favorably next year. With again getting Duke, Clemson, Virginia Tech. I don't expect to be back by then. I think that Van Dyke hopefully gone. We'll see who they replace him with. I like the 23 schedule. I mean, we talk about Mike needs to get to 7-8 wins this year. would need to increase that next year if he's able to. Looking at 9-10 wins, I think that's doable with the schedule that you're going to have in 2023. I'm not going to go out on a limb and predict 9-10 wins just yet, but certainly like this better than what could have been
certainly
when you look at 2023.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. We've all talked about what this year will mean and where he needs to get to, and whether or not that includes a bowl game win, et cetera, et cetera. But you're right. This is 2023 is a year in which I realize the vast majority of the fan base, or a portion of the fan base, is made up its mind on Mike. But for the more macro view of the program, you really need this to stick and work, at least for the next couple of years, to continue to build upon this foundation, not have to start over at zero again and incur all the recruiting, all the recruiting complications that come from starting over and trying to operate off an early signing period, and all discussion that's been had by many parties previously. So yeah, if 2023 really ends up being the prove it to me year where we win 9 regular season games or something like that, as an expectation from the athletic department, then I think you're right. You could have certainly had a much tougher, road to try to navigate than what we're looking at right now on the screen.
I guess the other side of that, and not to go the super negative way, but the other side of that is if it happened to kind of go off the rails this year and we do have to kind of start things over, it's not a terrible first year schedule for somebody coming in either. Could, just like I think it'll be kind of nice for Mike in 2023 and the team, you don't have somebody walking in 2026 when you play Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Florida, and Miami all in the same year. So it could be worse. So yeah, I like the 23 schedule. I think it's very early to go to 24. Hopefully we're out of here by then. But yeah, I think 23 sets up fairly nicely. So any other overall thoughts on the ACC, the conference? Just want to do this quickly, get your thoughts, share some thoughts, and get out of here. If you guys are watching this, we've got a good number of live viewers. If you can hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. We're going to try and do more pop-ups here on Double Fries No Slaw with people that you actually value their opinion, like Sinone and Ingram and stuff like that. So hit the subscribe button. We certainly would appreciate it. Hit the share button. But any other thoughts, Ingram, before we get out of here?
From a selfish perspective, if it was either Syracuse or Boston College, I really wish it would have been Boston College, just because that's such a better place to visit than
Boston's
upstate
amazing.
New York. But so be it. So be it. If it's what Florida State asked for and the ACC acquiesced, then I can't really be mad at the conference. I certainly don't see some of the thought that they've put into pairing in the past, and I've made my skepticism about some of what we've talked about clear earlier. But it's interesting. It'll be fun to see how this happens, and what it does mean is that it means that not versus currently, because you're not going to be playing Boston College every year, but you will see Boston, you will see Charlottesville. We are going to see some of these places more frequently, and if you're one of these fans that loves to go on the road and go to cool spots, then that will certainly be much more accessible with this scheduling model, where you have a degree of rotation that you just were never going to have with the current Atlantic and coastal structure. So I think it's a good move. I personally think that we're just rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic when it comes to this conference from a 10 to 15 year projection, but that's for another time. But it'll be interesting to see what this looks like, and I certainly welcome a greater sampling of the conference, whether it be that you've traveled to away games or not.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't mention is we kind of always look at what our rivals have too. Miami's schedule in 2023. We talked about how ours sets up maybe somewhat favorably. Miami has to go to BC. Hopefully that's kind of a late year game. To Raleigh, to Florida State, to Chapel Hill. They also get Louisville and Clemson at home. So as don't hate to see that either, with them most likely losing their quarterback to the draft. Again, they'll reload and replace, but I like how that sets up for them. So, hey, thank you guys for hanging out. Quick shout out to the sponsors: Guthrie's, Garnet and Gold, and Gramco. You can use code No Slaw when you're at garnetandgold.com. You can use DFNS25 at thegramco.com, and make sure you get your gut box double fries no slaw. Ingram, thank you for hanging out. Tell the people about the Nolecast when you guys are recording next.
We recorded on Sunday night. Bud is actually out at Elite 11 now, so we'll have a Elite 11 recap here pretty quickly. I imagine probably Wednesday or Thursday, and I'm real interested to see what Florida State has a disproportional involvement based off what the record's been the past 3 years with how many kids are out there. And I mentioned this on the past Nolecast. I will pay more attention to this and will be more interested in the Elite 11 results than I have been in a long time. So interested and curious to get his opinion as to what the landscape looks like out there.
Cool. You guys go check out the Nolecast. Follow Ingram on social media if you can. If you watched, if you listened, hit subscribe. We appreciate it. Interact with us on social media. We will be back. We actually have another pop-up coming tomorrow. So stay tuned for tomorrow's pop-up. I'm working this week, Ingram. So thank you guys for hanging out. See you next time and go Noles.